The distress beacon had been silent for 3 days before Elena's salvage vessel picked up the faint pulse. Out here in the Theta Expanse, where colonial roots withered into dust and forgotten treaties, silence usually meant death. She almost ignored it but something in the rhythm, the desperate irregularity of the signal, made her change course. The wreckage of the Carathi transport ship hung like a broken skeleton against the void. Hull breaches gaped like wounds, and the vessel's biosignature was fading fast. Alina maneuvered her ship, the Wayfarer, alongside the dying craft, magnetic clamps locking onto what remained of the docking port. Stupid Elena, stupid and soft, she muttered to herself, checking her environment suit one last time, but her hands moved with practiced efficiency, and within minutes she was crossing into the transport. The Carathi were predators by nature, bipedal lupin, with silver fur that rippled like mercury and eyes that could see in spectrums humans couldn't imagine. Their society was built on pack hierarchy, on strength and unity. They didn't ask for help. They didn't show weakness, which made what Alina found in the cargo bay all the more heartbreaking. 7 cubs huddled together in the corner, their fur matted with dried blood and fearsome. They couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 solar cycles old, barely past weaning age. Their golden eyes tracked her movement with feral wariness, lips curling back to reveal needle-sharp teeth. The smallest one whimpered, a sound that transcended species. "Oh no," Alina whispered. "Where are your adults?" She found them in the crew quarters. All dead. Pirate attack, probably, or maybe a rival pack. The Carathi didn't discuss their internal politics with humans, and humans had learned not to ask. Alina returned to the cargo bay and crouched low, making herself smaller. "Hey, little ones, I'm not going to hurt you." The largest cubber male with a distinctive white patch on his chest growled, positioning himself between Alina and the others, protecting them, leading them, even now. "You're brave," Alina said softly, "but you're going to die here if you don't come with me. I have food, warmth, safety." The cub's growl intensified, but his legs shook with exhaustion. Alina made her decision. She couldn't force them, but she could make it easy. She set down emergency rations, not Carathi food, but protein rich enough to tempt them, manned, backed away to the airlock. Then she waited. Hunger won over fear, as it always did. One by one, the cubs crept forward, the large male always last, always watching. When they'd eaten everything, Alina started walking back to her ship, leaving a trail of rations. The cubs followed. The first week was chaos. 7 traumatized predator children aboard a small salvage vessel meant for 1 human was a recipe for disaster. They shredded her spare clothes, knocked over equipment, and one enterprising female sleek and dark-furred managed to activate the emergency beacon 3 times. But Alina was patient. She'd grown up on a frontier colony where you learned to adapt or you died. She sectioned off the cargo bay for them, installed heating elements that mimicked Carathi den temperatures, and synthesized food using the protein database she'd traded for at a way station. The large male cub watched her constantly, those intelligent golden eyes tracking her every move. She started calling him Rin after an old Earth word for king. It seemed appropriate. Slowly, impossibly, they began to trust her. The smallest cub was first a timid little thing with oversized ears who started following Alina around the ship, chirping soft vocalizations. The dark-furred female came next, boldly investigating everything Alina touched, learning through observation. But Rin held back, even as the others grew comfortable. He accepted food from Elena's hand, allowed her to dress a wound on his haunch, but he never relaxed, never stopped being their protector. 3 months into their journey toward the nearest Carathi outpost, everything changed. Alina had been working on the navigation computer, trying to plot a course that avoided both human and Carathi patrol routes. Neither would understand her situation, and she didn't want the cubs taken from her before she could explain. She hadn't realized Rin had entered the bridge until he spoke. "Why do you help us?" Alina spun around, heart hammering. The cubs had been developing speech faster than she'd expected, mimicking sounds and words. But this was the first time one had formed a complete question in common trade. Rin stood in the doorway, nearly as tall as her waist now, growing fast. In another year, he'd tower over her. "Because you needed help," Alina said simply. "We are Carathi. You are human. We are not pack." Alina set down her tools and knelt to his level. "Maybe not by blood, but out here, we're all we've got." Rin's ears flicked confusion, perhaps, or consideration. The others. They forget their packmates who died. They play and eat and sleep as if they were never lost. "They're young," Elena said gently. "They're healing. That's what young things do." "I remember," Rin said, and there was such ancient grief in his voice that Elena's throat tightened. "I remember my mother's howl when the attackers came. I remember my father telling me to protect the cubs, to lead them. And you have," Alina said. "You've done exactly what he asked. But I failed. I could not stop the attackers. I could not save the adults." Alina reached out slowly, telegraphing her movement. When Rin didn't pull away, she placed her hand on his shoulder. "You saved the 7 most important lives on that ship. You kept them alive until I found you. That's not failure, Rin. That's leadership." The cub was silent for a long moment. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, "Are you our pack now?" Elena felt tears prick her eyes. "If you'll have me." Rin leaned forward, pressing his forehead against her collarbone, a Carathi gesture she'd seen in documentaries. A recognition of family, of belonging. "Family," he said, testing the human word. "Yes, you are family." 6 more months passed before they reached the Carathi outpost on Terminus Station. By then, the cubs had grown into juveniles, all sharp wit and sharper claws. Alina had filed the necessary paperwork, fought through 3 levels of Carathi bureaucracy, and secured something unprecedented: adoption rights across species lines. The Carathi Council had been skeptical. Humans did not raise Carathie young. It wasn't done, it wasn't natural. But when Rin stood before them, flanked by his 6 packmates, and declared in flawless Carathie that Alina was their alpha, their family, their home, the council had no choice but to recognize the bond. As they walked back to the Wayfarer that evening, the cubs no longer quite cubs pressed close to Elena, their warmth surrounding her. So Elena said, grinning despite her exhaustion, "Who wants to learn how to pilot a ship?" 7 voices howled their approval, and Elena laughed loud and free and unafraid. They had no pack to call home, but they had each other. And somehow, impossibly, that was enough. Retroclode can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.